Greetings, everyone. On behalf of the Planning Accreditation Board, or PAB, this is one of several training videos provided online to help prepare you for your role as a member of the site visit team. As we go through the video, you may stop the presentation at any time and resume at your convenience. Throughout this presentation, we encourage you to write down questions that come to you. If the question is not answered, or if you are confused about something in the video, please contact PAB staff and they will get back to you with an answer. In addition to the training modules, the PAB website has several valuable manuals and additional resources for site visitors. Please read these manuals and review these resources prior to your visit, as they will refresh your memory of some of this information and provide more detailed information than we can share on the video. By the time you complete this video, you will have achieved 3 important learning outcomes. First, you will be able to differentiate between programmatic and student learning outcome assessment. Second, you will be able to identify direct and indirect measures. And third, you will be able to analyze programs' student learning outcomes assessment plan for compliance with PAB standards. Within Standard 4, Curriculum and Instruction, is Criterion 4D, Student Learning Outcomes Assessment. In this video, we will examine in detail Criterion 4D. We encourage you to review the criterion language as you navigate this video. Please note that 4D references 4A and 4B for the complete list of criteria to measure. What is outcomes assessment? Outcomes assessment broadly evaluates the effectiveness of a program or institution in achieving its goals and objectives. There are 2 sets of assessment: programmatic assessment or program improvement, and student learning outcomes assessment. Programmatic assessment is an ongoing process designed to monitor and improve the performance of the degree granting unit as a whole. Programmatic assessment is related to strategic planning and discussed further in PAB Standard 1. Student learning outcomes assessment specifically focuses on the students and the competencies they have acquired. Rather than assuming that qualified and effective teachers produce well-educated and prepared planning graduates, student learning outcomes assessment asks the question, what do you want students to learn by the time they graduate from your program? And what student-based evidence can you provide that learning has occurred at the level you defined as acceptable for your graduates? The student learning outcome assessment process loop. Student learning outcomes assessment specifically evaluates the extent to which students meet predefined learning goals or outcomes, focusing on improving teacher methods and curriculum-based data. Programs need to define clear, measurable outcomes for student learning, design learning experiences to help students achieve these outcomes, choose appropriate tools to measure those outcomes, regularly interpret the data to assess student performance, and implement changes to enhance learning based on assessment findings. Student learning outcomes focus on students' learning and outcomes. They specify an action by the student that is observable, measurable, and done by the student. PAB expects programs to identify student learning outcomes associated with the core knowledge, skills, and guiding values of the planning profession, and develop valid measures of student attainment of these learning outcomes.
A planner graduating from an accredited degree program must be able to demonstrate the knowledge, skills, and values necessary for competent professional planning in diverse occupational and institutional settings. The criteria in Standard 4 provide a framework for judging the scope and quality of minimum educational outcomes in core classes. Programs are to offer core classes that cover all these curriculum components for all students, which are then supplemented with electives and can also include anything else the program deems important. For example, If one program's mission is to be the best place for planners to be experts in GIS, you should see some core course syllabi, assignments, and measures that indicate that, and somewhere where the program is hooking into that criterion 4B2, skills and tools for planning practice, like methods of geospatial analysis, mapping and data visualization. Yet another program might want to send out experts in citizen participation. So they offer a great deal of qualitative research skills, like analyzing the themes in verbal feedback and creating word clouds, for example. You'd expect to see a lot more GIS in the first program versus the second. You'll see variation here as some programs stress some skills more than others. And perhaps most important in terms of what sort of planners we want to see graduate from accredited programs, what are the values you are looking for? Number one, equity, diversity, social justice, and inclusion. Number two, sustainability, resilience, and climate justice. And number three, professional ethics and responsibility, such as codes of ethics for APA and AICP. Focus on the core curriculum and look for evidence in terms of overall curriculum matching up to PAB expectations. You'll be able to check course syllabi for listed learning outcomes and review samples of student work. How will you know if a student has achieved the course learning outcomes? Look for measures of student performance using criteria 4A and 4B. The PAB criteria state the object of the sentence, what the knowledge is. They don't state what students should be able to do with that. Do they repeat it? Do they memorize it? Do they apply it? The program has to state what it is, the verb, that they want their students to be able to do in relation to the PAB criteria. So let's take a look at some examples and see what we've got for student learning outcome statements. Here are examples of a program's student learning outcomes. Later, we will come back to these and see how they can be measured. The measures should be reflected in a student learning outcomes assessment plan or process. It does not have to look like a plan in the sense of goals and objectives, but should be a written implementation strategy with measures and regular programmatic evaluation check-ins on the measures. There are two categories of measures that are often seen in a program's assessment process. The most valid and required measure are direct measures, such as projects with applied rubrics, employer ratings related to PAB criteria, and exam questions specific to course learning outcomes tied to PAB criteria. These are critical in that they provide concrete evidence of what students are actually learning. There are a variety of measures that programs can rely upon, including analyses of student work, reviews of student portfolios, course projects, or some sort of culminating experience, such as theses, capstone projects, comprehensive exams, etc. Indirect measures are secondary, but valuable additions to a program's student learning outcomes assessment plan. Course grades are indirect measures. They reflect overall performance without directly measuring specific learning outcomes or detailing what students have learned. Students' self-ratings and survey responses provide context to direct measures, especially if outcomes are unexpected or concerning. For example, satisfaction surveys offer useful insights, but don't confirm achievement of course learning outcomes. Here are a few examples of rubrics used to assess student learning outcomes. The first example is a rubric used to assess students upon entry and exit from the program. Faculty meet to review the assessments and discuss how they are doing as teachers. Meanwhile, here is a rubric used with the students' final comprehensive exams in their last semesters. Those scores on the PAB criteria are then assessed at faculty meetings right after students take the comprehensive exams. You can see the core classes on the left, then the PAB values, knowledge, and skills. The process can vary from program to program, some being very elaborate, others are more simple and concise, yet comprehensive and systematic. As a site visitor, you are looking for checklists, rubrics, learning maps, etc., that connect to PAB criteria. For additional examples of student learning outcomes and example rubrics, please visit the Noteworthy Practices page of the PAB website. Going back to the previous examples of student learning outcomes, what could a direct measure look like for these outcomes? Well, one could be case study analysis paper in a course like Urban Planning 785. The program uses a paper assignment in course UBPL 785 to assess students on the depth and accuracy of the historical analysis and how well they connect historical knowledge to the present situation. Or number 2, oral presentation in course UBPL 705. The program uses an oral presentation in course UBPL 705 to assess the student's ability to construct, articulate, and defend a comprehensive advocacy process, ensuring they can give an effective presentation while applying theoretical knowledge to real-world scenarios.
The curriculum map is a snapshot featuring specific required course content which all students are learning in the classroom. It demonstrates consistency in delivery of the curriculum. The program will list their courses at the top, then check off which courses cover each of the values, knowledge and skills of criteria 4A and 4B. In the student learning outcomes assessment process, curriculum maps can be used to identify where learning objectives are expected and can be used to link course level objectives to program level learning outcomes. The PAB curriculum map is a basic listing of the PAB guiding values, knowledge, and skills of the profession. It does not necessarily define all the learning objectives or what students should be able to do upon completion of the course or program. Programs may present a modified template to align with PAB, its own processes, learning outcomes, and where direct measures occur. Programs can use one or more curriculum maps as part of their documented assessment process. Closing the loop. To demonstrate compliance with criteria 4D, the program student learning outcome assessment process shall have a clearly defined approach, methodology, and measures for student learning outcomes. The program should demonstrate closing the loop. A program needs to identify the learning, where and how the SLOs are measured, collect and review the data, make changes if necessary, and repeat. On a site visit, you may encounter a few situations that could be viewed as challenges to meeting the criteria, such as a program has no defined student learning outcomes nor measures. Some assessments or measures are based largely on indirect measures, such as course instructor teaching effectiveness, student satisfaction surveys. Or 3, a program may define student learning outcomes that are not reflective of its defined mission. As a site visitor, you should look to see if they have defined student learning outcomes. Are they appropriate to the program and its mission? Do they link to PAB criteria 4A and 4B? How are the SLOs measured? Are they appropriate and valid? Direct measures are the most valuable and preferred. Is there an assessment plan for student learning outcomes? This would include the schedule for assessing the various SLOs. The program does not need to assess student learning outcomes for every student on every outcomes every semester, but assessment should be conducted regularly and consistently for all students via the same or similar instruments or rubrics. Have they provided a summary of results and discussion? Are they assembling and reflecting on the data? Is there a feedback loop and opportunity for involvement included? Reverse, rethink, celebrate, keep going. Here's a bit of advice from a seasoned site visitor. Remember, student learning outcomes assessment is about having measures that align with what the program wants to teach, adheres to PAB criteria, and are regularly used to see if students are actually learning what they think they are learning. As a site visitor, you play an important role in the accreditation evaluation process. Your service is greatly appreciated. Thank you.